cascading. Okay? And I'll move right along these slides. I know we want to get to the demo. I talk about VMware just because it's a very, very hot topic, and the majority of my customers are moving more towards a VMware or a virtual environment. So again, some of the complementary plugins within a unified storage product, of course, is the Site Recovery Manager. Now we have failover, failback. Very easy to fail back. Again, this is the ability of protecting your ESX environment, your ESX clusters. Of course, it works just beautifully with storage vMotion, with vMotion, with those type of components. Works extremely, extremely nice. Again, leveraging the replication technology, the snap technology, and again some of the tools that you have within the ESX or VMware tool belt. Okay. Backup. Again, a unified storage solution or message or methodology wouldn't necessarily be complete without having a way to back up your data. Now, a lot of customers are moving to more of a tapeless environment, meaning I'm replicating it from site A to site B, therefore that is my backup. But I run into customers that also require a physical tape. So in this case, the most efficient way to back up, specifically when you're talking about a file share, is via NDMP. Again, the advantage there is that my metadata is traversed across the network, but again, that metadata is very small in nature, and the payload is actually routed or connected via fiber channel. So again, I can leverage the connectivity type between my system and ultimately the tape library. In other words, big channels there, or big pipes, fiber channel. But again, the metadata would be the only data that traverses, say, my LAN. So the NDMP, having an NDMP type of backup is what I recommend. There are some others out there. Network-based backup. A network-based backup, basically your payload and your metadata traverse the network, so that puts a lot of stress on your network, specifically if you have say an immature network. So NDMP is definitely the way to go from my perspective. Okay, with that being said, let's move on to this next capability. Actually, I put this in here because it's a new capability that we have as of March the 2nd, and that is really having the ability of locking down a file system to the point where I have a clock that is running against this particular data set or particular files. We have had this particular feature, which is FLR, File Level Retention -E. It has been around for a few years, but now we've added the -C for compliant, which means not even an administrator can go in and delete the file system underneath the hood. Before, with the FLR-E, E for enterprise, an administrator could log into the system and go ahead and pull that file system underneath, delete that file system underneath the hood. In this case, not even an administrator will be able to do that until all of the files have met a particular retention date. Okay, so that is part of the offering now. That is FLR-C. Some people refer to it as WORM, write once, read many. We talked a little bit about this during the kind of the build slide early on, and that's management. This is the Solera Manager. We'll get a full breadth and depth of this particular product or GUI here in just a couple more minutes. I have a couple more slides, and then we'll jump right to the demo. But again, single point of management allows you to create file systems, allows you to create exports, checkpoints, all sorts of goodies. Again, your single point of management here, very robust in nature. I'll quickly hit these topics because I think the demo will be able to, I'll be able to articulate these topics during the demo. So again, virtually provisioned we talked about. Data duplication, quotas, nested file system, so having the ability of having multiple file systems presented as a single mount point. Specifically, if you're managing large NAS environments, this is pretty helpful. We'll talk a little bit more about this during the demo, but in essence, point, click, creating a file system, having the best practices on the back end. So if I want a 200 gig file system, when I hit OK, the back end performs best practices when it starts talking about laying the file system out across RAID groups, across LUNs, creating stripes, concatenation, that type of functionality, all automated when you use Celera Automated Volume Manager, or AVM for short. Virtual provision, this is just kind of a graphical interface in terms of what it looks like. Basically, what this means is if I have a business unit that comes to me, they want a 1 terabyte file system. I don't want to necessarily give them a 1 terabyte file system. I'll give them 3 gigs to start, but I'll give them the illusion that they have a 1 terabyte file system. I'll build some triggers so if they get to that point, it'll automatically give them that storage. The question that I get here quite often is it possible to virtually provision more storage than you actually have in the array? And the answer to the question is yes. So you have to be very careful when you start thinking and working on virtual provision in a virtual provision file system. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that topic a little bit later, but let's talk about data deduplication, and then we can jump right to the demo after this topic. So again, data duplication, we released this functionality March the 2nd, so just a couple months back. And again, the intent is that if I have a 1 terabyte file system, I enable data duplication at a file system level. It goes out and it finds files that are the same. So I may have a Javier PowerPoint presentation that's living across, say, 3 different directories. Same PowerPoint presentation. So by enabling data deduplication, the engine is going to find those 5 identical PowerPoint presentations. It's going to take that content, it's going to shortcut, offload the inode, which means give you space back, take that content, put it into a repository within the same file system, and then apply compression. So if you notice, I started with the 1 terabyte file system. The 200 gigs, 800 gigs refers to active data versus inactive data. And again, that's going to be kind of a key trigger because we don't necessarily want to single instance and compress data that's very active, because there is a time delay when you look at that file and need to make modifications because it's compressed. It needs to recompress and basically put it back into that active data slice here. So again, 2 things that I want to key in on. One is single instance, so it goes and finds those 5 files, PowerPoint presentations that are the same, single instance them, shortcuts them, stores it as a single file, but pointers to those 5, those 5 areas, and then we apply compression. So that is, well, in this instance, it was a 37% savings. Now, again, mileage will vary. It depends on your environment, of course. So with that being said, let's transition over to the demo, and we can go from there. Alrighty, so I'm going to transition over to